Hey everybody, welcome to Somos at Home Fun Club Week 5. I am Martina and I am here with...
I'm Elicia Cárdenas and I'm in my classroom.
Crazy. How long has it been since you've been in your classroom, Elicia?
Well, there is my little date marker, says March 16th. Which is the last day I was supposed to teach, but I didn't.
Wow. That is crazy. So tell me what
really
it was
emotional.
Like in your room today.
I cried, honestly. Yeah. Everything was set up for parent-teacher conferences that we had the week before, so I didn't even get to have a full week with the kids, and the 7th graders were on a trip. So I haven't seen some of my kids in 3.5 months or more. And I came in and I love my classroom. I love this space. I've worked really hard to make it what I want and to make it a place that I really like to be. Mm-hmm. So coming in was just really emotional. Like there's ungraded work in my inbox, which I'm not going to grade, just for the record, because it was from March.
Yeah, forget that.
And yeah, it's intense. I still have some write and discuss texts on the board, which I'll show you guys. And then I have to start cleaning it out.
Elicia, I hope that you can show us. We might need to go to your computer because it looks like, so guys, we're trying to do a classroom tour of Alicia's room on her phone, but the audio isn't working on her phone. So we were on her computer, but Elicia, it looks like with the live on Facebook, we cannot, it's just going to the audio. So since you're talking through your computer, it's showing just a blank screen.
Okay, all right. Well then, let me switch over.
We might just have to get car sick.
All right, then here we are, guys. And I am so sorry because I don't want anybody to be car sick. I get really car sick, so I was trying to avoid that. All right, well.
There you are.
Shall we then? Here I am.
All right. So let's see. So we've got it. We know that in order for you to give us the classroom tour, you have to be talking. Otherwise, we won't be able to see you. So before we get started, do you want to just tell us a little bit about like an overview of your classroom and what kind of a space you tried to create in it, and maybe some of the big things, and then we'll go on our walking tour?
Sure. All right. I'm just going to orient myself so that I'm not horribly backlit. So my classroom, first of all, I've moved classrooms 4 times in 6 years.
Oh my God.
So, and the reason I was willing to do that at this many times was because I was holding out for the nice classroom. You know how every school has like a nice one?
Oh,
this one's a little bit bigger, which means there's more room to store things, and I have a lot of things, but also there's a really nice space for my bicycle. But most importantly, I have a reading loft. This used to be a 5th grade room.
Oh my gosh.
And so I have a reading loft. And because I have a very strong free voluntary reading program, the reading loft is like, it's carpeted and it's pretty and I love it. My classroom is, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the only time I ever had a reading loft in my education was in 3rd grade. My 3rd grade teacher had a little reading loft, and to this day I still remember how much I loved it. She had a reading loft and then she had a love seat, and that was like, I mean, this is maybe messed up, but it was like a privilege that you could earn, you know, with like your tickets to get to go in the reading loft or read on the love seat. And so since I was a very compliant student who just loved getting more tickets, that was super motivating to me.
I will say the loft is motivating. The loft, and then I have a special green chair, which is similar to the love seat, are both very good enticements to get kids to come back from lunch on time or back from recess on time. Very much the same thing. Other important things you should know about my classroom is that it is deskless, and I have been deskless since about halfway through 3/4 of the way through my first year, when we had to do a bunch of testing and they had to like move all the desks for some reason. I was like, can we just try this? I've been hearing about this and I loved it and felt so much more like in charge of my own space and felt so much freer to do the kind of activities that I wanted to do that I never went back.
It's so I always had desks in my classroom in Anchorage. If I went back to the classroom now, I think I probably would try deskless, but I'm curious to hear from everybody. Maybe drop in the comments if you are deskless, or if you have desks, like one desk for every student, or if you're kind of curious and thinking about changing. I'd love to hear where you're at. Someone said they love your David Bowie.
Oh yes, that's he's there because we got to stay strong to our roots, right?
That's awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're getting a lot of holas and bonjours, and we're so glad you guys are here with us. Okay, so big things, you're deskless, you love your classroom, it's got a reading nook. Tell us about all, other than David Bowie, what do you have behind you?
Okay, actually, can I start from the beginning?
Oh yes, please do.
Because I do want to start by going outside, because the outside of my classroom is a pretty key part of my classroom.
Are you
so
going to abrir la puerta and cerrar la puerta? Ouvre la porte et ferme la porte. I'm trying, but.
So first of all, sorry, the echo's terrible because there's no kids here and it's just open lockers. But I want to show you guys, this is one of the first activities that we do, and I can drop a link in to my blog with describing this. We just start with, what does it mean to be proficient in a language? And start developing some common language. And then I keep these student samples up all year long. And we refer to them constantly.
Those students,
the other couple, the student samples of their own descriptions. So let me see if you can read.
Oh, in English.
This. In English.
Cool.
So this is a novice low writing
list
in English on the subject of taco. And up here we have, I believe, skateboard. And we go all the way up to an intermediate high.
Very cool. Alicia, why would you go up to like advanced high or superior?
Well, to be perfectly honest, my students aren't going to get there in 2 years that I have them at all. I don't even really have anybody who gets to intermediate high, and that's okay. My very highest flyers get to become a solid intermediate low, or a solid intermediate mid, but like they're the real exceptional high flyer. And that's okay. It's only 2 years, right?
Yeah. No, I love that you take that time in the beginning of the year. And I think a lot of teachers have started doing this in recent years, and there's so much value in it to just manage expectations, right? That's one of our mindset shifts with our students, that, you know, you're not going to be fluent at the end of this year, but let's look at proficiency. And like you said, let's develop a common vocabulary, or you might have phrased it a little bit differently, but, you know, so that we can talk about how, you know, what is a reasonable like expectation. And, you know, you don't have to get down on yourself when you're only sharing a word or 2 words at a time.
Exactly. The other thing that I use my hallway space for is to really celebrate the things that I want students to know about language acquisition. So over here, I have a bunch of quotes.
Cool.
Noam Chomsky, Stephen Krashen.
Can you read one of them to us?
And yeah, so this one is one of my favorites. The purpose of communication is to put a picture in the heart and or mind of another person. This is from Lori Clark.
Yes.
And I put these up so when students are waiting to come into my class, they have no choice but to interact with them. Like, they're there and they read them.
Yeah.
And so they start to develop a sense that language acquisition isn't about grammar drills and memorization. It's about communicating and understanding.
I love that.
And the other thing is that I take pictures of all of my kids while they read. during the first few weeks, and I make a bulletin board of them reading. And I put it up. And the only accountability I have for them is they have to write a sticky note. I got this, I believe, from Alina Filipescu, a sticky note with their name, the number of stars out of 5, how easy is it, and then if they want to write anything else. And then it sort of becomes a little competition. I have one set for each class. And
do you have like one, that kind of looks like a bar graph. Is it like a bar graph for each class, or?
It's a very informal bar graph. Okay. It's just, this is how many books this group read.
Okay. So it's like,
this is how many this group read.
Okay.
It's just a visual.
Got it.
And then this is also a way that I advertise my program to families, because I want them to see what we're doing.
Yeah.
We read, this says students in 8th grade Spanish read 20 or 30 minutes a week. So families know what we're doing. And
that must be a huge and important conversation starter, because, you know, parents are probably coming from the mindset of what their language classes were like. And so when they see that, oh, this is what my kids, like, your kids are going to be reading books. Like, I never read a book when I was in my language classes. It just seems like a really good open door to have a conversation.
Exactly. And that's so important, because a lot of people talk about how maybe they have resistance to moving to a comprehension-based program. And I did have plenty of resistance up until I really started taking a lot of time to educate both kids and parents and administrators.
Yeah.
So even right here, while you're waiting to line up at my door, that is my parent-teacher conference schedule. I've got another quote from Dr. Krashen and a quote from Jim Trelease from the Read Aloud Handbook about reading. And both of those are so important. So my kids line up as I wait to greet them. They have to give me a password, which they have written down, and then they come in. Do you want to pause for questions here?
Yeah, I was going to say, Michelle said that this is really cool, but she's sad because she misses her classroom so much. And Michelle, I'm sure you're not alone. I know that this is just, it's really
heartbreaking.
Yeah, really good and really hard at the same time. Yeah, just people liking the pictures of kids reading. I can't see very many comments, so I need to be better about watching them all as we're going. Okay, we can keep going.
All right.
Oh,
all of the quotes.
Pause, sorry. I said keep going, and then the password. So Lonnie asked if you can explain the password activity. I think maybe we'll skip that for now, and maybe we can share some resources, because that can be a little bit confusing to explain, unless you think we can.
It can be, but you know what? I'm going to make a list of some resources to share right here on my whiteboard.
Ooh,
I write on my smartboard, watch this, password.
Boom.
And quotes. I saw somebody else wanted the quotes activity. I actually downloaded it from a file from the main IFLT page, and I don't know who I got it from, so I don't feel comfortable sharing it. I'm so sorry. I will see if I can find it. Okay. I hear ya. I cried when I walked into my room too, you guys. This is like super, super heavy.
Yeah.
Really.
Deirdre asked if, and we can go through this maybe at the end, but like thinking about your classroom and like if you were going to be teaching online in the fall, like what would you be grabbing from your classroom now? She's going to be packing up her room tomorrow. So I think that's a really smart question.
Yes. Let's go back to it, but as it comes up, I've already started a list of what I'm taking. So where should we start, you guys?
Where do you want Elicia to go? We have the delay, so it's going to be like
okay. All right. Well, how about
I want to see your walls. I want to see what you have on your walls.
Okay. I have best practices say to not have busy walls. I have very busy walls, but they are somewhat color coordinated. So first, this is a really important thing on my wall. This is a picture of my cats being really lazy, and it says lentamente.
That's
and
awesome.
this is for me. This is not for anybody else. This is to remind me that my job is to go slow.
Because lentamente means
slowly.
slowly.
I didn't want to put despacito for obvious reasons. For those of you who don't know, the song is super inappropriate and probably shouldn't be played in a middle school. So, okay, so over here I have my question words, and I have them in two places. These are question words in Spanish with an English translation.
Okay.
Now, I don't teach kids who are new to Spanish. I haven't for the last couple of years. I haven't taught like novices, but I still use these all the time. Yeah. And I also have smaller ones that I can just walk over and grab. And actually,
oh, nice. And
that's not true. I do teach kids.
Those specific posters are from the creative language class, I think, if anybody wants those specific ones you have. Because I have
Are they?
Yeah.
I think I downloaded them my very first year, and I never updated them because they work, they do their job, and they're great.
Yeah, same. But there's tons of free ones. Like TRS Books has some that are really great.
And in all kinds of languages, which I really like. When I said I'm not teaching novices, I am. I teach 5th grade in this classroom. I haven't been for remote learning because it's an elective, but anyway. Okay.
Everybody wants to see a reading loft. Sorry.
Okay.
Now
reading loft. So first I'm going to show you my vertical reading. A lot of people want to know, like, how do you display revista literal? How do you display Mundo en tus manos? How do you display those like cool one-page stories? So this is the solution that I came up with.
I'm going to interrupt you again. Sorry. So for those, because I don't know, we found out that we've got all kinds of people that are joining us. So Revista Literal is a free online magazine that we publish in Spanish. Traditionally, I was doing it once a month with like 10 stories and creating it as a PDF for teachers to download or to send to their students. During school closure, I've been publishing one per day, and it's just published as a blog post. I still need to do today's. So we can send you the link to that. And then El Mundo en tus manos is a news publication that we do. It's bi-weekly. I do that with Maris Hawkins and Nellie Hughes. And so that is also a PDF that you can print and send out. There is also a French version, Le Petit Journal Francophone.
Francophone.
That Cécile Linné and Anna Gilcher publish monthly. So these are printable PDFs that students can read with text for students.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. So this is my really low tech solution. It's a hanger. Let's see if you can see that, with a string and some clothespins.
Nice.
And I just have it like really simple, and I have it organized by stories, Revista Literal, news, and then over on this section is kind of whatever I think the kids will be interested in. I change it up about once a month, like a good librarian. This was my goal this year, to actually change things up.
I love that.
And it's so simple, and like once I figured it out, super game changer. And then over here, I actually have Somos stories. So they're very. This was my goal this year.
Sorry.
Can you mute yourself? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I clicked something and I shouldn't have clicked it.
No, I understand. Over here are Somos stories specifically, hanging again by my very high tech. And so this way, kids know that if they just want to read something familiar, they can grab these.
Oh my goch, I just love it. It kind of creates like a curtain divider too, with just.
It does. And because I have so much to read, but helping kids find the right thing to read is hard.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to step back.
You need like a clothes hanger, right? Hannah asked for clarification. You have clothes hangers?
Oh yeah, it's just like those old wooden clothespins. which I still use when I hang my laundry out to dry.
Oh, wait. Do you have a hanger at the top? You just have a.
It's just like a hook, but I've also just used a.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, like a safety pin.
All right. So Hannah, she just has something at the top that's attaching this string to whatever fixture it is, whether that be the ceiling or the board. So whether that's you have like some clips on your whiteboard, or if you have to do a paper clip to like make it fasten to something, and then you have a string hanging from it with clothespins at the bottom that are clipped onto the papers.
Yep, super low tech. So I'm going to step back so you can see this is the ladder. And my knee isn't great. I don't think I can go up there one-handed. It's super high. And yes, one kid once has fallen out of it in my colleague's class, because we actually have 4 lofts.
Oh my God.
But it's carpeted. There's pillows up there. We have had a lice scare, so then I made kids take turns going up and vacuuming up there. Oh, and I wash the pillows pretty regularly. So, and then under the loft is my SVR library.
Love this. Chris, this video will be available after we're done, so don't worry if you missed part of it.
Mm-hmm. And again, in my SVR library, I have quotes about reading. My favorite is people acquiring a second language. Let's see, can you read it?
Yep.
Have the best chance of success through reading.
I love that.
And I've played with a few different ways of organizing it, but mostly I just have it, let's see, easier to harder. And then this year I've organized it by author. Cool. So even if an author has a range, I have everything by Myra Canyon over here, so it's easy to find. Yeah. I have everything by Karen Rowan over here. So if a student particularly likes one author, it's very easy for them to find something else.
Very cool. Gina, she said SDR, FDR. So Elicia is saying F as in Fred, V. I should just say the actual, it's free voluntary reading, FVR. And you might also hear it referred to as SSR, sustained silent reading, or FCR, free choice reading, because I mean, technically in a classroom, it's not voluntary. Like you're telling your students to read, you're just you're giving them the opportunity to choose what they can read. So all of those same kind.
I am so sorry for using acronyms. I try never to do it, but I'm trying to manage like holding this up and processing my own emotions.
You're awesome. Sorry, I'm going to keep interrupting you so that these questions don't go. What are the books and where did you get them? Tracy, we will send you links to all different kinds of places. There are tons of authors that are writing books that are written with simple, sheltered vocabulary for language learners, and we would love to connect you with those.
Absolutely, and we even did a summer fun club on teaching with novels, which is a little different, but there are so many novels. There's so many more novels that I don't even have room for. And I'm very sad to leave my amazing library. Most of these actually don't belong to me. I do want to show you a couple things.
Sorry, everyone's asking about how it works with checking out the books. So we should clarify that this isn't a library like a normal library.
Actually, it sort of is, in that if a student does want to take something home, they can check it out. And they can do that because there's a free thing called Book Source, and you can create a database and enter kids' names into it and then check them out. It's clunky, it's buggy, and it's free. So I have used it every year and I really like it because I also loan a lot of books to my fellow teachers, so I can keep track of who has what. And so I only have a few students who regularly check books out, but I want to make it available, especially because I teach in a community where parents take their kids sailing to Europe for 4 weeks, and I need to come up with something. So books are a really nice way to manage that.
So then in a typical like day-to-day basis, what purpose is your library serving then?
My students read in 8th grade. We don't have them read from the novels in 7th grade because there aren't enough. Like maybe there are now, but we just don't have enough books. They'll go through all of them, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
If we have 2 years worth of reading, but maybe there are now. So they read for 10 to 15 minutes twice a week. In my class, it was usually Wednesdays and Fridays. And that was how we started class instead of with any kind of starter. They just come in. There's a little, instead of a starter, there's a note that just says, we're reading, and they read.
And
Super mellow.
So they read, and then Malika had some questions like, then just when they're done, everybody returns their books at the same time. So you don't really have problems with kids usually like forgetting to return their books because it's essentially an activity in class. Like this is the time and now it's done and everyone puts their books back.
Yeah, I have a chime and I say, it's time to go. It's time to put away our books. I have one girl who always like has this big drama. It's really adorable because she loves to read so much and we all laugh. And then sometimes I might say like, I have my classroom divided up into zones. So I might say, Argentina, return your books if they're sitting in that zone. If they're sitting in Mexico, then they'll go back. Sometimes I'll do it by.
Now we're finding out more about your classroom. Okay, before I want you to talk about that, but first, we're getting so many questions about the books, and that is like a whole nother topic. So how do you determine what level a book is? How do you determine what kind of a book a student is ready to read? What makes a good book for language acquisition? All of those questions are so important, and Elicia and I are both super passionate about it, and we're going to save those for another live. And we have a live that kind of talks about it, but we'll do it again.
And maybe in the future, maybe before I pack up the library, so we can look at them. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But before we leave the library, I just want to show you guys these. These are books. This is an activity that Martina has with some of the units where you have the kids actually create their own illustrations. And this is a really nice way to add text, like free text. If you don't want to buy books or you have beginners, these took very little effort to make. And this took no effort to make. It's just the story. So you can create your own beginner text or your text at your own level without having a huge amount of money. And so know that. Okay.
And we also are getting lots of questions about your shelves and how to do that. And that's probably, we're just gonna have to do a classroom library tour. So we'll move on from classroom library and we'll do a tour and talk to you guys all about it.
Okay, let's move on to the walls, shall we?
Let's do it.
This is what Martina really wants to see. I have a lot of models, like I said. So first, let me show you guys this. These are some calls and responses that I learned from Alina Filipescu, and I have 2 different sets, and I use these as brain breaks. I use these as wake-up calls. So I might say, 1, 2, 3, the kids say no English. I might say, A, E, I, O, U. They'll reply, El burro hija sabe más que tú, which translates to, the burro knows more than you. With an
like
hija,
which is very important. They're saying that to you, and it's not you saying that to the kids.
Like, right, the kids are saying that to me. This is one of my #1 favorite posters because I don't teach grammar. Grammar, as we know, is a lot more complex than perhaps as we were taught to teach. So I got this from Martina, and this is the very first poster I ever put up after my question words. And it's very simple. How do I say who is doing something? Well, if it has an O on the end, it probably means I'm doing it. And that's grammar in my classroom. Up higher, I don't know if I can make it. This is an expressing opinions poster. Oh, yeah. And this is so important. So on it, I'll just read what's on it. It says, she's right. I believe that. I don't like it. For me, it seems to me, in my opinion, I think I agree,
Mhm.
and along with English translations, and like these words we use all the time. They're such a big part of our classroom discourse.
Mhm. I
Um,
when I originally put those posters up in my room, you know, what I loved about it was that um just reflecting on my Spanish learning experience and like hashtag no judgment. Okay. I totally loved my Spanish teachers. I still love them. And I had an amazing experience in Spanish classes, but we weren't talking about things that I could have opinions about. And so now, you know, now that I've learned how to make language comprehensible for even early language learners, it's so cool that my kids can talk about things that matter to them, and things that are, you know, shaping their thinking for life, not just, you know, not just learning the language, like that we're talking about real stuff that really matters.
yes, yes. Let's see, moving on. I have some circumlocution posters,
Oh yeah.
which is super important. David Bowie, a little tiny number chart. This doesn't work. Don't do this. Um, over here, I have some subjunctive starters, not because I teach the subjunctive, but because I use it all the time. And we make because if you make it clear, once they know quiero que means I want that. And I put up some common words here, they start using them.
That's awesome.
And that really helps with their placement in the future, but
Yeah.
it also really helps them not be afraid of it.
Yeah.
And not be afraid of kind of the acronyms and the way they just know that, like, if you want to tell somebody what you want them to do, then you just change the verb a little, no biggie.
It's sentence frames are so useful, and I love how you created that and in just a very open-ended way and had it on the walls. Constanza is asking, what's your Chilean flag for? She's from Chile, and it makes her so happy to see it on your wall.
Oh, well, Constanza, I biked across Chile and I love the country, even though I couldn't understand any of the Spanish at the time. Very challenging for me. So I have my classroom when it's oriented. So now you guys are going to get the student view. I'm sitting in a student chair. When it's oriented so that you can see the smartboard, the classroom is divided in half. One half is Chile and the other half is Argentina. So if I want the class to do like a classic TPR activity, Chile, look at Argentina. Argentina, jump 3 times. Chile, jump 4 times. Argentina, look at Chile. It's a very easy way. If I want kids to return their books, Argentina, put back your books. Chile, stand up and wait. And then I also have Mexico and Guatemala, 2 other countries that are very close to my heart. If our room is oriented the other direction, because I do have, my room is very flexible. Sometimes I teach this way and sometimes I teach this way, depending on my purpose.
Yeah. I like that because it gives you an automatic option to go to instead of saying like boys and girls. Like you have something that's already set up and in place that is a very inclusive way to divide up your class.
Exactly. I work at a school where we are very encouraged to not use binary gender language. So this is one way to very easily get around that.
Oh, someone else just had something that they wanted to say and now I forget it. Shoot.
I know these comments fly so fast.
I know. We can only see 4 at a time. Oh, the posters. Yes, someone was asking about the posters. So the posters are all on my website. I'm going to put them all together in a link and send it out. I'll post it in the comments here, but I'll also send it out to our mailing list. So as long as you're on the comprehensive.
You did already.
Oh, I did already. Yes, you're right. I did already. But I'm also going to add to it my digital learning adaptation ones that I've been working on. So yes, if you're on the mailing list, you're all set. You'll get that.
So a couple of the other things on my walls. Here is where I do a write and discuss sometimes right behind me.
Okay.
And
Tell
then
us what
sometimes I just
discuss
write.
is.
Oh, a write and discuss. This was, I was asking a group of students where they were at 3 o'clock yesterday, and we were having a discussion about it. What were they doing? And then I wrote it up. So at 3 o'clock, Claire was at Walmart with Ruby, and they were buying sweets. Emmy and her friend were watching 8 episodes of The Bachelorette. So it's just a way to kind of bring everything that we were talking about in oral discourse into the reading realm.
So you had a conversation and then you summarized it. And while you were summarizing it, you were writing it up and talking about it some more.
Exactly. Only really they were telling me what words to write.
Cool.
I learned this amazing technique from Justin Slocum Bailey, where I asked them, comma, period, new word.
Neat.
And they had to tell me, and then they kind of had to feed it to me.
Oh, so they super did it. That's awesome.
Yeah. And like, was it correct? No, of course not. Was it awesome? Yes.
That's awesome.
Here's a modification.
Someone just said, do you have students that are overwhelmed with all that print on your walls? And you mentioned this earlier, and actually, I had a thought about it too, because I had been to several trainings where they just talked about either it being like very busy and crazy to have too much on your walls, or that it just becomes white noise. But I've never, I feel like this is my totally not research-based thinking. And maybe there is research and maybe there's not. But because I am like, I was literally using the stuff on my walls all the time. Like I was pointing to it. I wasn't concerned about it being white noise because they were tools. The busyness of it, maybe so, but it was also I had very clear purposes for how I used everything. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I very much do, because I've thought about it a lot, because I want to make my classroom as inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
And to me, this is being inclusive, because every word that is really important is here and students can use them and it's accessible. And something I didn't know about myself as a teacher until another highly experienced teacher was observing me in my classroom space. He said, my classroom is very much set up to take advantage of our brain's spatial memory connections.
Oh my gosh.
And we know that spatial memory is huge. And if you've ever seen a video of me teach, I am all over the map, except for the ones when I was on crutches. But I don't just point, I walk over.
Yeah.
And I have a present tense. Like if we're talking in present tense, we're over on this rug. If we're in past tense, we're on this rug. If we're talking about other stuff, and the kids know, and I even have them trained, like if I use a word, they know where to look to double check.
Yeah.
Like I don't even have to point after a certain point. And I've asked them, especially ones who have IEPs or 504s, I've checked in with them about this and asked what I can do. And they said that they would so much rather have the language support and the time I give them to look, because that's
that wait
huge.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Elicia, so just thinking, sorry, about, so first of all, I'm so glad that you brought up spatial memory, because I mean, I think all of us have experienced that and the value of that. And so associating different spots in your room with different things. I remember when I first started doing TPRS, Ben Slavic talked about that a lot on his blog, that like each scene of the story would happen in a different space in the room, because that serves to help students remember. Because, you know, we're not teaching a memory class, but sometimes, like, as you're trying to help students remember a story, it's not that the language is holding them up, it's that like they just don't remember. And so you know, using those spatial cues as you're referencing stuff in your room, or like you said, like past and present tense, or as you're telling stories, like thinking about that physical space. And it also makes it really hard when we're moving to possible more remote teaching. Like, I feel like this spring, it's like survival mode. We've just got to get through this. It's not going to be perfect, but then, as we're looking at this as maybe a long-term thing, like we owe it to really figure some stuff out, which kind of sucks.
It kind of sucks, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I spent this weekend painting a green screen in my very, very small office with exactly that reason. It's so green. It's like greener than that. I have been thinking a lot. I did this amazing webinar. I co-presented with Diane Neubauer earlier this weekend, and she said, she said for herself, well, I never sit down when I'm teaching. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't sit down when I'm teaching, but during like this remote crisis event, I have been, because I've felt so stuck and just panic. Yeah. And I realized like, I need to break out of that. I need to look at space in a different way, even if it is in my 8x10 office. And I am not exaggerating, guys. My office is 8x10 and it has so much junk in it because I like books and tapes and crafts. So that's, it's something I'm working on. We're going to keep discussing it and trying things, because it's really important to me to help you guys transfer some of the things that we do. And like, I get it. This has been really hard.
Yeah. We have a couple of suggestions. Like someone suggested having students have placemats with the with some of the words, and that's something that I've been kind of working on, like these quick reference guides. Obviously if you're like standing up and teaching, you can actually have it on the wall behind you. You just have to make sure it's big enough. But being able to have a quick reference sheet, probably with either laminated or with some kind of a hard background, so it's not so flippy floppy, or on a clipboard, where you can point to the words in the same way that you would in the classroom. And having copies for the students to have in front of them too would probably be good, because for some kids it's going to be hard to track this, but if they know that they can like look down at the list, and again with that spatial memory, like they might remember like, oh yeah, that's like toward the top of the list, even if they don't remember what the word actually is. I think that's a really solution.
That's so important. I want to talk a little bit about a modification that I've made that's very Somos specific.
Okay.
In terms of what's on my walls. Okay. And let's see if y'all can see this. Moving down. So these are the core vocabulary words.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
For Unit 6.
Yep.
And these are the core vocabulary words. I don't know if you can see them, for Unit 17, because those are the ones that I was teaching at the time. And what I have is the core vocabulary as is presented in Somos. And then I also have in English and Spanish. And it's up there the whole time. So let me show that to you again. Sorry, this is very awkward, me leaning over like this.
No,
and then I also have first and second person. So for students who want to try to produce a sentence using those forms, it's there for them. There's no expectation that they do.
Yeah.
But it's there. And if I use this and they don't know what it means, I can show it to them. Now, this is really tiny.
Yeah.
I also have it bigger projected most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is just kind of general reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, thinking about what to have when you're doing digital teaching, obviously if you're using Somos or New Som or the Latin version, which is being worked on right now. I know, so exciting. I won't give any details. If you're using any of those things, we do have core vocabulary in the units. You know what they are. You know what they're going to be ahead of time for most of the lessons. And so having a sheet with it written out or printed out ahead of time with those core vocabulary words and maybe a couple forms is a really good idea. And if you're not using a curriculum and you're just kind of, having conversations with your students or on days that you're doing weekend chat, having something like a whiteboard that you can at home that you can write on. And this one, honestly, like if I was standing up, this size would be fine. But for me, just sitting down, it is hard to have a small whiteboard because it's just, there's not a lot of space to write on, and you kind of have to be erasing on, having a stack of whiteboards maybe that you can pull up, but something that you can be writing on for students to see as you're going would be really
absolutely. In answer to what will I be taking with me to potentially teach remotely next year, if I was going to be full-time in the classroom, these are exactly the right size for me.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely would take all, I plan on pulling all of these. So a couple of other things that I just want to point out on the walls are common storytelling words. These are more downloads from Martina.
Yep, and I've got
prepositions you probably can't see, but this is really important. Mm-hmm. These are my classroom expectations. Mm-hmm. And I do have these downloadable on my blog somewhere, I think, in our story asking stuff. I will, do you want me to read them?
Oh yeah, but first I'm going to skip right to number 4 because I love what, well, no, I won't skip to it. I love what you did with number 4.
Okay, so the first one is listen with the intent to understand. One person speaks, the others listen. Do your 50%, play the game. And I always have them put that in their own words. The original number 4 was signal if you don't understand, but I got some learning on that and changed it to say signal if I am not clear. Mm-hmm.
I kind of love that it's like crossed off, because like that makes it so obvious to them that like it's not a you problem, it's a me problem. And so then
it's a me problem. Exactly. And it like models that like I didn't like that, and we can change these things. Yeah. Right? There's some flexibility. I do have sit like a student and track the speaker. Those are school expectations, that students sit up and that their eyes follow me. Now, I don't apply that equally to every kid because that wouldn't be appropriate. Sure. Right? But for most kids, that is a good expectation for my style in my classroom. And then number 7 is support the flow. That's my get out of jail free card as a teacher. Like, oh, that was not supporting the flow. They know what it means.
Yeah. I want to say just with the I am not clear thing, we're going to run out of time. But last week we talked about questions and, you know, making sure, helping how to determine if your students understand the questions that you're asking, and how to look critically at the words you're using, and considering like, do my students need help understanding this or not? And one of the things that came up was names, and how you use familiar names to your students, because if you're using Spanish sounding names in your Spanish class, your students might not be able to differentiate between a name and like a verb or a noun. And it's so funny because I was teaching a little Spanish lesson to my mother-in-law last night. I was telling her a story with my whiteboard from El Mundo en Tus Manos, from the news publication. And I kept saying the word Jaime because the guy's name was Jaime, and I had written it down on the board. But at one point she's like, what is Jaime? And she's like, I can't figure it out. And I was like, that's his name. I mean, I didn't say it like that, but you know, signal if I'm not clear, like that was me not being clear. Like it wasn't her not understanding. Like Jaime just sounds like a Spanish word. It doesn't sound like a name to her. So.
Yes. Okay, we're running out of time, but I do want to show you guys how I store my Somos stuff and how I store my props. Awesome. Because those are 2 really important pieces. So first, I do use a ton of props. And this year I had a wonderful kid who helped me organize them. So in this one, let's see, in this bin, they're just like dollar store bins that fold up. They're very low tech. In this are things that people might wear. Okay. People. In this one are things that animals might wear. So I've got my dinosaur, I've got my bunny, I've got several pairs of unicorn horns. This one, otro, is just random.
I'm really impressed that you have that organized.
Well, I need to be able to find it quickly
Yeah.
in a story.
Yeah.
So, and then the one that I probably get the most use out of is, I don't know if you can see this, comida.
Nice.
So, and then I also have a ton of stuffed animals, a lot of dice, a bunch of like random plastic animals, whatever I happen to find. And I have a blog post that goes much more in depth into like what about props and why props and looking at props.
Awesome.
But that's how I store them so that I can get to them. And for my stuffed animals, because it doesn't matter how old your students are, and this goes for adults, stuffed animals are your friends.
Yes.
So I have them actually in like a pop-up laundry basket.
Oh, fun.
And that's all full of, and I also have an overflow basket, don't ask. And finally, these are my binders for Somos.
Okay.
And I do use paper copies, but not of everything. Mm-hmm. And this is how I keep everything digitally, but I also keep everything in a binder to make it easier to copy.
I always did too. And a little reminder that, I mean, if you've printed things, we update Somos pretty regularly. You should get notifications from Teachers Pay Teachers every time that the curriculum is updated. If you did not purchase it through Teachers Pay Teachers, then before you teach each unit, just pop into, we have a spreadsheet that's like the master update log. So just look at the master update log and see when was the last date that this unit was updated. Was it since the last time I taught it? And it'll say what was updated about it. And so you can kind of decide, like, is this something I really need to print it out? Like sometimes it's literally, there was an extra space between two words. And so you probably don't need to re-download it, but sometimes they're pretty significant. So we'll send that to those. Caitlin asked, you make copies for each student and have them keep their own binder. That will be another conversation. We can talk about your interactive-ish notebooks.
We did a whole summer fun club on interactive-ish notebooks.
Yeah.
So
Elicia, what of all of these things would you be, would you be taking with you? Elicia is not returning to the classroom this fall. Elicia is going to be full-time training for Somos, New Som, and general comprehension-based teaching. She is going to be on the road, we hope, or in the cloud. We'll see. And so if you were going to be teaching full-time this fall, what would you take with you from the room? What of those props would you take with you?
Well, I was thinking about this because I was supposed to be teaching an adult class for Central Oregon Community College over the summer with Michelle Whaley and Skip and Lori, some of our coaches.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think that's canceled.
That is canceled. So, but I had my packing list of like, these are the things I need to take. So, and it hasn't altered. So my stuffed animals need to be easily accessible. My costumes for animals need to be easily accessible. My food probably needs to be like bunny ears and bunny ears, and probably actually all of my props need to be in a bin that I can grab easily. That's on my list of things to do. Maybe not every stuffed animal, but at least 20 stuffed animals, because if I have a class of 20, everybody needs one.
I was just going to say, life is just so crazy, because I was like, if you guys need stuffed animals, just go to garage sales. Like everyone's always trying to get rid of their stuffed animals in garage sales, but like garage sales, at least in my town, are like canceled for this year.
Yep.
For getting costumes and props. Karen Rowan, I think, dubbed the day after Halloween as International Prop Day, because that's when all of the costume stores and stuff, they mark down all of their costumes. So that's a really good day if you're looking for some costumes to run to the store and see what you can find.
Big Die. I love these. I use these in so many ways. These are from the dollar store. You get 4 for $1, and I use them for 1,000 things. So those will be coming with me. And my pom-poms. will be coming with me, along with like really basic cups,
Tell me why.
because I use these as game counters because unlike Anne Marie Chase, I don't live in Nevada anymore. So like they're game pieces. I don't believe in using like beans or rice or any kind of food because so many of our families are food insecure. Pom-poms are $1 at the dollar store and they're fun. I also use them, and Annabelle Williamson modeled a lot of brain breaks to do with pom-poms. So I've adopted a lot of those, and they're very fun, and they're not messy. So those I will use, and yeah. I don't know what else.
I think someone's asking, they wrote when you use the 5, but I think they meant the die. So what is something that you would use the dice for at home?
Oh my goodness. If you've ever played Four Corners or Elimination, it's a brain break, but it's also an input game. So if we're, maybe we've read a text together, then I send them to different corners. I have the corners marked in my room. I actually have 6 corners because, you can do that. And I play music and they dance. The music stops. They have to run to a corner. I roll the die. And then I ask them a question in the target language. And whoever's at that corner answers. It allows me to, it feels like a game, but it's not because, I mean, it is, but I am very much controlling who gets what questions. So if it's a kid who needs a lot of support, I'm going to give them a yes, no question with the answer in front of them. If it's right, like it's another way to give them more input that is very, what's the word, differentiated.
Yeah.
And it feels like a game.
Yeah. Okay, we probably have time for like 2 more questions and that's it. So Elicia, while we're waiting for those to come up with our little delay, do you have any closing thoughts? Do you want to give us a big, maybe sweeping view of your classroom? Someone asked for that.
Yes, and I also put up a link that has kind of a think aloud. You can click on different parts of my classroom and see, and it's got links to most of the things I've talked about. But this is as far as big as my as long as my hands go. So there's my smart board. There's half of my chairs set up. There's my reading loft. There's my like one table that students can work at.
It feels so not schooly. Like it just
I know.
feels homey and wonderful.
Thank you. That's what I'm really trying to go. You may or may not notice that most of my signs are color coordinated. That's very intentional. The giant bunny head has a long storied history with our Spanish classes. And there we are. I am heartbroken to leave my classroom, but I'm excited for what happens next. But I'm pretty heartbroken to leave this classroom.
We've got a bunch of, so we have questions like, how do things change with larger class sizes? Jessica, I know I had 35 kids in every one of my classes. I had desks in my room, but the walls and things looked very similar to what Elicia has. The authors that fill your library, we can send you a link to that. How do you make connections with 130 plus total students?
It's hard. And also you do it by listening and by being very intentional. I know it's so hard. Having classes that are 40 or 35 is not my reality at this time in my life. And I am very grateful. It is hard. Also, most teachers who have large classes and are deskless and use comprehension-based teaching, so I'm thinking of Grant Boulanger, Alina Filipescu, and many, many others, say they would never go back to having, to not comprehension-based teaching and to having desks because you can connect so much better when there's just less in the classroom keeping you from your students.
Yeah. Totally. Just eliminating that space of the desk so that you can kind of be able to enter into their world, I think is really important. Lisa, we're doing these trainings, we're doing these Facebook Lives once a week. Make sure you're on our mailing list. I'll add the link to that because it's been pretty consistent when we're doing them, but it might switch from like Tuesday to Wednesday, depending on our schedules. And then, okay, one last question. Somebody said, how do you do tests with deskless classrooms? That'll be our last one for today.
Okay, that's an easy one. I can answer this. My tests, my longest test is probably 12 minutes long. My timed free writes are 10 minutes long. My tests are very short, very sweet. They sit on the floor. I've got clipboards if they want them. If they absolutely need them, I have a couple old tray tables from the 80s that a couple kids might get out. They can sit anywhere in the room. But part of that is that I don't want them to be writing for that long or working on something. I want to be interacting with them and giving them input. So I very intentionally limit tests. And it's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards the Somos curriculum, because I think the longest test is 6 questions, maybe. Ooh. And that really works for me and for what I believe about language acquisition and assessment. And as you guys know, I'm pretty obsessed with assessment. So we're going to leave that there because we have lots and lots of resources about assessment.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm excited because one of the things that Elicia, I'm hoping that she'll have time for in this coming year is to kind of go back through some of the units that we're not in love with the assessments and just really build them out to be more intentional and cohesive and, you know, supporting the overall vision that we have for language instruction. Okay. we're not taking any more questions because I've my sitter has to run. But really quick, Constance, I know I said no questions, but I am taking a question. What this would look like for a high school, it doesn't matter, no matter what level you're teaching, you're using the walls in the same way, you know, whether you go deskless or not deskless. Did you have something to say?
I teach 4 levels in this room right now, and I've taught 5 or more in this room in the past, or in a room that was set up basically identical to this. So you can do it.
Oh, I did forget though. Somebody emailed me a question ahead and I said, I promised that we would answer it. So we do have to do that. So she said, that Joy, she teaches, she shares a room with other subjects. There's a civics teacher and maybe math, I think she said. And so she has really limited wall space. So what strategies do you have for teachers that are sharing rooms and have really limited wall space? Off the top of your head.
I shared a desk full room, and my deskless classroom with a desk full teacher. And what we did was we each had 1 wall. And there's 4 walls. Well, in our class, there were 3 walls because one of them was all windows. So I got 1, she got 1. And when we were in my classroom, we were oriented towards that wall. And when it was her classroom, we were oriented towards her wall. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It did take a lot of communication, but it actually ended up being an amazing experience. And we both learned so much from each other. And I don't ever want to do it again, but I'm so grateful for having had the privilege to do it.
Yeah, that's that. You are someone, one of the things that I love about you is just the way that you work with other people and are so committed to, I feel like compromise kind of can sound like a dirty word, but you know, meeting other people where they're at and really figuring out how can we move forward together. And so I'm glad that you had somebody on the other side that was willing to do that with you. But
I'm very lucky. All right, you guys, Martina has to go. So
yes.
I will come back and drop some things in the comments. I will add this to our At Home Fun Club thread. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. So be patient and thank you.
We'll be sending out, I think maybe me or you, I'll definitely send out a newsletter within the next couple of days with we mentioned so many resources, but also with links to these digital, we didn't end up talking a lot about remote teaching, but I'll send out to you the resources that we do have. So be well, have fun, and we'll see you.
Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye.
Bye.